Words leave me at a time like this. This week's episode of Dragon Ball Super was on drugs. Simple as that. It was on drugs. Super-powered android girls, ghost-mad scientists, rice cookers which can create porno magazines, and poop on a stick. This week's episode was just nuts. It was a crossover with the classic gag comic series, Dr. Slump, which is another famous series which was created by Akira Toriyama, the creator of the Dragon Ball universe. And it wouldn't be the very first time that Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump have crossed over. Oh no, it's happened many times, with the characters from Dr. Slump going over into Dragon Ball and vice versa. Hell, there was even a couple of episodes in the original Dragon Ball anime series which featured Arale and all of her wacky characters. What I will say is, I know next to nothing about the Dr. Slump series. I just know that it's a gag manga series. Simple as that. Supposedly it's set within the Dragon Ball universe, probably in the farthest corner of Earth where things are just goofy as all hell and make almost no sense. I mean, just to describe some of the ridiculous imagery from like the first minute of this episode alone, like, I can't do it justice. It opens up with the son brushing his teeth and then seeing this pig in a tuxedo with a megaphone on his head telling everyone to wake up as we're treated to all of this ridiculous imagery of aliens and robots and poop. Lots of poop! So what's the story in this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super? Well, it looks like there's going to be a big award given to the greatest inventor on Earth. And everybody assumes it's going to be Bulma because she's traveled through freaking time. But no, the award is actually going to go to Dr. Slump himself, Dr. Senbei Norimaki, who also created this super-powered robot girl by the name of Arale, who is super peppy, super happy, and ridiculously super strong. She basically beats the ever-living shit out of Vegeta in this episode. Now, let's keep in mind, this is essentially a joke episode of the series. Don't take the power level stuff that you see in this episode too seriously. There's no way that Arale would be able to take on Vegeta. Not to mention, the name of the episode was Goku versus Arale, and they basically trade like 2 blows and that's it. Vegeta mostly fought with her, so that is false freaking advertising, Dragon Ball Super. But the rest of the episode is just madness. Pure madness. A bunch of characters, too, that frankly I don't know anything about. Arale is joined by these 2 fairy things, which are called Gachons, which destroy and eat everything in their sight. There's this evil ghost mad scientist named Dr. Marashido, who apparently was like one of the big villains from the original volumes of Dr. Slump, but he died. That's why he came back as a ghost. He gets destroyed by Beerus at the end of the episode. And then there's Arale, who is just disturbingly powerful. She's a robot girl, so she can survive a lot of damage. Her head even falls off multiple times. Beerus almost killed her in this episode, but unfortunately he got a bad case of diarrhea after eating apparently what is the world's greatest food. And honestly, I think that's probably my favorite thing about this episode is this weird device which was created by Dr. Norimaki, which is the Reality Machine Mark II, which apparently you can make a wish on it or it'll like bring your innermost wanted desires to life. So for him, he gets porno mags. For Mr. Satan, he gets this like little keychain action figure of himself because he's just so into himself. And then Bulma decided to take this video camera, point it right at it, and ask the people of the world, think of the most delicious foods, and it all comes together so that they can bring Beerus to the planet and bring an end to this week's ridiculous freaking shenanigans. Did I mention that Arale is also obsessed with poop for some reason? Is that like a joke from the manga? Like she just sees poop on the ground with eyeballs in her mouth and just likes poking it? Is that the joke, Dr. Slump? So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super? Honestly, it's not even fair for me to review this episode. I know nothing about Dr. Slump. I don't get a lot of the sight gags. I'm guessing that the intro was maybe like a recreation or like an homage to the opening of the Dr. Slump anime series. I know that it uses the same song at least. But like I said, my knowledge of the series does not go that far. This will be like the second time that I've really seen these characters aside from their cameo appearances that they've had in the Dragon Ball movies or even in the original Dragon Ball anime. This is all completely new to me, and frankly, it's just not my type of series. I'm not really into gag comedy manga all that much. That being said, that was probably the funniest thing about this episode. When Arale was actually fighting against Vegeta, Vegeta had to get into the mindset of not acting like his regular self, not fighting like he's in a battle manga, acting more like he's in a gag manga. This will give him the perfect opportunity to take down Arale, but she's just way too into her own element in this episode and pretty much just wipes the floor with Goku and Vegeta. But like I said, there really isn't much of Goku versus Arale at all. Like, they fire a couple blasts at each other with Arale literally firing it from her mouth, firing my laser, and freaking Goku using his Kamehameha. He even goes into God form and can't stop her. Just, I just don't know how to feel about this one right here. It's the type of episode of Dragon Ball Super that, like, if I start collecting the series on DVD or Blu-ray, like, I'll probably skip it just because I can't fully appreciate these characters because I don't really know anything about them and I'm just not really into them all that much. What I will say is, if you're a fan of the Dr. Slump manga series or the classic anime versions, then check out this week's episode. You might get a lot of the crazy references, and you might even get a couple of chuckles out of all of the battle scenes, especially with Vegeta, who, even by the end of the episode, is still just as funny. And it seems like the funny is going to continue because in next week's episode, it looks like Universe 6 and 7 are going to have a baseball game. You know, I wasn't too excited about this one, but at least this one's going to at least feature the main cast of Dragon Ball, and I always love a good baseball-themed episode of anime series. One that comes to mind is Gundam Build Fighters. There was a whole episode devoted to baseball in that one. There was also a fantastic episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders. So I'm very interested to see how Dragon Ball is going to tackle baseball. Not to mention, it's a really great reference to when Yamcha was a professional pitcher. You guys remember that one from back in the day? And it looks like he's also going to be pitching in this one and bringing the Wolf Fang Fist to Universe 6. So, this was an okay episode of Dragon Ball Super. Usually, I give scores to episodes. For this one, I just don't know how to feel about it. So I'm not going to give this week's episode a score. It wouldn't be fair. For me, I didn't really like it. But there are people out there who really like Dr. Slump, which I think are going to appreciate a lot of the humor in this episode, and getting to see those characters interact with the characters from Dragon Ball, you might get something out of it. For me, personally, I just didn't care for it. But if anything, just for curiosity's sake, just check out the episode for yourself. If anything, you'll get some laughs from it. So, that's my thoughts about this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super. If you guys watched it, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. Were you guys fans of the Dr. Slump manga series or the anime series? Were you excited to see this big crossover? Did you have a favorite scene from this episode? Why is Arale so fascinated by poking poop? Tell me all your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. I really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment or two, and like the video. I will see you next time, and as always, stay dandy, baby.